Hi guys, it's Beth here again today. And today I'm making 2 more cards using the May 2020 Flavor of the Month kit. And I am going to be working with the Little Lady collection for this first card. I love the ladybugs and the bright colors. And as I started making my card, I realized I should show you the sketch I'm going to use, and that is from the sketch sheet that you can download to go with the kit this month on the Scrapping for Less website. And I started with the black card base and cut down that green polka dot paper from the collection to 4 and 5 1/4. And then I pre-stamped some of the daisies from the Little Lady stamp set, and I already fussy cut those out, so I didn't have to do that for you on camera. And I'm just using a yellow marker from my stash. It was the brightest yellow I could find, the only one that really stood out. So I just used that to color in the center of my daisies, and then I'm using a small piece of the daisy pattern paper matted on some black cardstock for the rectangular element on the side. Daisies are one of my favorite flowers. I would say it's sunflowers and daisies are in my top 2, so I was loving seeing some daisies in the kit this month. So I'm just adding my stripe down there in the middle of the card, like the sketch calls for. I'm going to go ahead and here that rectangle element. And I pre-stamped one of the sentiments from the stamp set as well. It says, "Every little thing will be all right." And I just stamped it on a white cardstock circle, and I'm backing it on a black scallop circle. And then I'm going to try and figure out where I want to put my daisies. The sketch calls for 3 little circle elements going down the right-hand side, and I'm trying to figure out if I want to fit them all, since they're bigger, on that right side, or put one elsewhere. And I finally decided to leave them on the right side, but I am going to add a few small pieces of cardstock underneath the bottom half of that very top daisy, just because it's hanging over the edge of that strip, so I want it to stay level. So that's what I'm doing with those little bitty pieces of cardstock here. And that will keep that daisy like all on one level after I apply it down on top of that strip. So then I'm just going to go ahead and use some liquid adhesive to glue my little daisies down. And this is a really quick and simple card. It was just fun to make, working with the bold colors in the daisies for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my sentiment up here on top of the rectangle. But again, I want to add a little bit of cardstock behind that top part of the scallop circle so that it's not going to droop over the top of the rectangle, since it is double matted. And you could use foam here if you want. I just like to keep it at the same level, and all of my foam is a little bit thicker, so the cardstock layers work perfect for me. And that is my first card completed, but I am going to add some white paper on the inside since it is a dark card base. So I do go ahead and add some white paper here so that there's room for a message. And then there's a strip of the green polka dot paper that I had left after trimming down my card mat. And so I'm just trying to find a place, like how I want to place it on the inside. I thought I'd add a little pop of color with it. So I ended up just trimming one end down at an angle and placing it off to the left-hand side. And that's it for card number 1. For card number 2, I am using the second sketch on the sketch sheet, and I am working with the Weather Together collection. I received some pink embossing powder in my kit this month, and so I decided to use the embossing powder on my card since I hadn't played with it yet. And I'm using the sentiment from the Weather Together stamp set that says, "After every storm, there is a rainbow." So I've stamped it with some Versamark ink, and then put my embossing powder on, and I'm going to heat emboss that. And I wanted to go ahead and do this first so that it could be done and ready to go on my card. So I'm going to put my powder back in and clean up the mess that I end up making. And we'll be ready to move on. So I'm working with a white card base this time, and I've gone ahead and die cut an oval out of that rainbow like sunburst pattern. I really liked that one. And so I made sure to center the center of the sunburst as the center of my oval, and then went ahead and die cut a black oval slightly bigger than that to use as a mat. Here I'm using the pink side of one of the pattern papers from this collection and am matting it on some black cardstock as well. And I'm just going to trim down some black cardstock to go behind my sentiment at the bottom. Again, to stay with that black matte layer. And then I'm going to pull in I had some of that turquoise ribbon left in this collection, and so I'm going to use up some more of that on my pink rectangle. So I'm just adding a little bit of score tape at the bottom here, and that's how I'm going to adhere it to the back of that rectangle layer. And then after I wrap it around, I'm trimming off some of that ribbon at the top, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the score tape to hold my ribbon down on the back of the top part as well. I just thought that ribbon would add a little extra pop of color over there on that side and add some texture to it as well. So once I get my ribbon on, I'm going to figure out how I want everything to line up, and then I'm going to use some score tape on the back of my rectangle there over the top of where my ribbon lies, just to make sure that it's going to adhere to my card base really well, and then I'll use ATG on the rest of that piece. And again, with that oval piece, I decide I want to add some cardstock strips on that right-hand side on the back, so that once it overhangs that rectangle piece, it will stay level. So I just picked up 2 scraps that were on my table and trimmed them down, and we'll just layer those on top of one another. And then that will help keep that oval piece level all the way across. I say I use the cardstock scraps more than the foam just because I like it's not quite as high as the foam, but it's also a great way to use up those little bitty scraps that you're just going to throw away anyway. So it's twofold for me. So now I'm going to put my sentiment down. I hadn't glued it to the mat yet, so I'm going to glue it to the mat and then glue it onto my card. And I realized once I get it down that it kind of droops in that bottom right-hand corner. And so I'm going to cut some little bitty strips of cardstock and try and squeeze them in under there so that that sentiment can be level. So after I get my glue on, I get these 2 little layers put together, and then I'm going to fuss with trying to get it underneath there and realize at the end I should have brought in my tweezers a lot earlier than I did, because the tweezers work wonders. So now that is how I want it, on the card sketch there are 3 little circles kind of towards the bottom right corner, and so I'm pulling out the sequence that came with my kit and looking for some colors that I might want to use. And also in my little sequin bag, I had left over a small circle punch that I ended up not using on one of the previous cards I made, and thought that it might look fun on the center of that rainbow sunburst there. So I set it there for a bit just to see how I felt while I get my sequins placed down. And then I take the circle away, trying to figure out do I want to use it, and then finally I decide just to go for it and put it in the middle of that little burst for an extra pop of color, because that's what this rainbow collection is all about, right? And there is my second card for today. So hopefully you guys got some more ideas on how to use your kit. And thanks so much for your time today, guys. If you enjoyed the kit this month, I will include a link to subscribe for future kits in the description box below. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for your time, and I hope you're all having a crafty day.